All right, good day, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation, Fire Alarm Technologies, Protecting What Matters the Most, People and Property, with Scalable and Cost-Effective Solutions for Commercial Applications, which is kindly sponsored by Kidde. My name is Colleen Beatty, and I'm the Senior Editor here at Electrical Contractor Magazine. And on behalf of the magazine, I want to welcome everyone who is joining our presentation today. So before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping items to get out of the way. So first, please note that today's presentation is being recorded, and we'll be providing you with a link to the recording after the webinar is over. So if you miss anything or have to leave a little bit early, that's totally fine. You can come back anytime and watch the recording to see what you've missed. And of course, we encourage your participation in the webinar, so please send us your questions. You can submit them at any time during the presentation using the Q&A module, which should be on the right of your screen. And we'll have time at the end of the webinar to answer them. You can also use the Q&A module to submit any questions for technical help, such as suddenly your audio has gone out, and we'll try to help you. And there's also a quick survey that will pop up at the end of your screen, on your screen at the end of the webinar. So we'd love it if you would fill that out for us. It'll just take a couple of minutes. Or if you want to fill it out sooner, you can just click the little icon that looks like a clipboard, and it will open it up. So with all of that out of the way, I'd like to give a warm welcome to today's speakers who are representing the Kidde Fire Alarm and Safety Solutions brand. Our first speaker is Timm Weber. He's the Strategic Accounts Director for Edwards, which is a carrier company. In his 30 years in the fire and life safety systems industry, he's seen technology evolve from simple audible-only horn solutions to modern, complex solutions that involve integrated fire alarm voice systems, direct recipient mass notification systems, and IP/VoIP connectivity. He focuses on educating building owners and facility managers on the latest life safety technologies and code requirements to help ensure effective response and management of different emergency events. Joining Timm is Mike Stoss, who works as Kidde's District Manager for the Central Region. He works directly with the distribution channel, so he is capable of supporting you through all channels of distribution. Welcome, Timm and Mike.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you for that lengthy introduction for me. Poor Mike, he got a short introduction there. Yes, so welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to take the time and let us talk to you about our Kidde Fire FX series product line that we're going to discuss today, and also provide some additional information. So the session that we're going to have today, obviously, will touch on who Carrier is and how we fit into the overall global carrier corporation, touch on our products, get more a little bit into the piece in regards to where the inputs and outputs lie, target projects, and also Kidde support tools. So with further ado, let's move right into the business side of things. So Kidde is part of the overall Carrier Global company. If you didn't know, Carrier Global is a publicly traded entity these days. It's about a net sales of a little over $20 billion in 2021, broken up into three segments, where HVAC is one of the larger segments, which is commercial and residential. And then refrigeration with transport and commercial applications around refrigeration and keeping particularly food and things of that nature moving across the globe. And then finally, the fire and security business, which is the business organization that Mike and I fall under in that space. And that's about a $5.5 billion business segment for the Carrier Global entity. And we are a global business when it comes to the fire and life safety segment within Carrier. And just to kind of give you some different company brands that you may be familiar with that are out there besides the Carrier HVAC stuff. So there was the Edwards brand from the fire and life safety system, Automated Logic, which is a building solutions company, Lenel S2, which is access control and security, Onity, and then some other companies that you may recognize around the world from that aspects. So without any further ado, and let's move on to what we're here for, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts and kind of turn this over to Mike. So what do you know? And introduce yourself and say welcome, but you can start us off with some of the contractor needs that you're aware of out there as a regional district manager for us.
Well, Tim, thank you for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So I am the Kidde District Manager for Illinois and Wisconsin. Anything that falls under that territory, please feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to help for any sort of life safety solution. Now, as far as contractors and people that we would be working with on a day in and day out basis, some tools that we're capable of providing for you are support for pricing or design. That be through different channels of distribution that you would work with. We are boots on the ground here to support you directly and your distribution supply house that you would choose to use to get you the correct pricing and the correct application design. To also go into that, in this marketplace, we would like to say that we are incredibly competitively priced for more than one reason. Of course, product, but then not only that from an application standpoint as well. Okay, so with our ease of installation and what we're going to get into today as far as our wire runs and what we can fit on our wire runs in particular for output circuits, these are things that will help provide cost savings through the course of projects. And then not only that, but how easy our systems are to program. To offer that training to you, of course, is a large portion of what we try and do as a manufacturer and me as a representative from the manufacturer. So over the past 2 years now, we have put on in-person trainings through it all in different sectors of the marketplaces. So if that be in different portions of the Midwest, say Indiana or Kansas City. These are all things that are free for end users to use, and we usually run these through different channels of distribution. Okay. And then, of course, staying up with current times and having an advanced technology and being first to the market with many different things that we support in our channel. Okay. And then, of course, reliability of product. One thing that you can look at from Kidde FX to older fireworks platforms is that a lot of our things really haven't changed as to how they talk to each other. So a lot of our systems are backward compatible in that sense, and we'll kind of get into what that means as we get a little bit deeper here. And then, of course, our tech support, truly located in the U.S. and on staff, 9 to 5 every week. Okay, so we are here to support you, and you will always get a live person. I think the worst waste time we've had is like a minute to 2 minutes. So if we look at what a life safety system is, it kind of ties into 3 main components, okay? So if we look at our head end or our control panel, that's where all these devices are going to be talking. And then our input circuit, so our smoke detectors, our heat detectors, are devices that initiate an action, okay? Also our pull stations and then input modules that would also receive that information to tell what that device to do. Okay, and then if we have our visual coverage or audio visual circuits, okay, as to providing visual coverage or an audible coverage to get you out of the building safely for life safety applications. And then just looking at the product as a whole, if we look at Kidde FX, this is a non-proprietary system, over the counter. So anybody can buy this. This is unrestricted. This has no programming rights to anybody, okay? So, of course, there's always a password protection to our panels for life safety applications. That is a must. But then again, it is a true open platform market of this Kidde FX product. And then there's the proprietary, which, Tim, if you could expound on that a little bit more as to the main differences.
Yeah, so the proprietary nature, is what you would classify as one, either being a factory direct offering where the only one source in a local market for service, support, installation, or purchasing the material. Then there also are what we would classify authorized partners or dealers or authorized distributors, which is very much like our Edwards channel. That is an authorized partner channel. And there's typically, probably 2, 3, maybe even up to 4, 5, 6 more options for purchasing and service the product within the market. But again, you're dedicated to they're authorized and certified by us on the manufacturing side for that. It's just not that anyone can actually walk into a distribution, security, life safety system type warehouse or company or even electrical distribution facility to actually purchase the product like you can with the FX product, which is that non-proprietary open market, which some end clients, that's a big big piece in that how they want to have their fire and life safety systems out there. They want to have that non-proprietary open market option so they can actually have their own staff possibly, service and support or make changes to the system as the life cycle of the system. Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you for that breakdown. And as we kind of look at what our products are capable of doing in the marketplace and why our capabilities are far greater than most in the marketplace as to what we provide from an over-the-counter standpoint, okay, and how we can support different markets. Just to give it a basic breakdown, we have conventional panels and devices, and we also have addressable or intelligent panels and devices, okay? So if we look at the conventional side to start, we have a 5-zone conventional system that can provide you with most coverage for, let's say, rural Wisconsin, for example. A lot of sprinkler monitoring. This would be a great application for that, okay? And then we also have a 10-zone model if we have larger properties, all right? And then with our 5, you get 2 output circuits, and then with our 10, you get 4. Similar to the addressable side, okay? The FX64, okay? 64 points, any combination of detectors and modules, 2 output circuits. And then the FX1000 comes out of the box at 250 points, has to be 125 detectors or 125 modules. Can't be 126 to 124. Now, the great thing about an FX1000 is that we can scale the system up to 1,000 points. So let's say we do have a large hotel or a large property that we would want to cover with an over-the-counter product that is open platform. We have the ability to do so because we can scale the system up to 1,000 points. And then as we get into our notification devices, those 4 NAC circuits that we get on this system can definitely help cost savings. And we'll get into that as we go further. The thing to keep in mind here, especially from a distribution standpoint, and the nice thing about our packaging, is that everything is simple to read and easy to follow. So if we need a conventional system, we're going to see this blue C to our left. And then if we need an addressable system or an intelligent system, we're going to see this red I to our right. So this is just kind of a general.
So what you said there, Mike, so this is more like for those that are non-millennials like yourself, if they remember all the way back to the Garanimals from Sears, where you could mix and match your clothes, we've now brought that whole process here into our over-the-counter product to make it easy for somebody to choose our products.
Yes, exactly. And Tim had to explain to me what a Garanimal was. And I learned that day. Yes. So that is a very true statement. It makes it incredibly easy on our end user, Tim, to definitely find our products. And from an over-the-counter standpoint, it makes it easy to read. Okay. And we'll kind of get into that as we loop in here to kind of our product packaging, what our systems are capable of doing. Okay. So I kind of gave you a quick breakdown. All of our systems are also optional with a dialer. Okay, so from our monitoring positions, whatever we need to do, we have the capabilities of doing that if we're using traditional POTS lines or cell dialers, okay? One thing to keep in mind from at least our panel packaging is that on the packaging itself, it gives you breakdowns as to how many loops you have, okay? So for example, on an FX64, it's a single loop panel, okay? Now, if an FX1000 packaging, it will show you that it has that scalability, okay? So this is things to keep into mind. NAC circuits, once again, keep in mind you have about 1.5 amps per NAC to be safe, okay? And another thing to keep into mind, we can fit up to 8 remote enunciators off each platform for our intelligent panels. So if we were going to fully scale an FX1000, this is a great way of kind of looking at it, all right? If we have this 4 built-in NACs, let's say, for example, we're in a bind and we need to use Gentex or Cooper Wheelock products. We have that ability with a sync mod, okay? Provides their sync pulse, and it's capable of working with our product, all right? So with that being said, you can also use the wonderful line of LED product that we've brought into the market. This is something that we'll get further into. And then if we were going to fully scale this system, that true 1,000 points is something that is incredibly valuable for larger applications in the marketplace, let's say warehouses or distribution facilities, whatever that would be, we got you covered, okay? And then to fully scale that with the 8 remote enunciators and then how we would monitor this, okay? So if we look at Central station monitoring, there's a couple different ways to skin this cat. So if we look at it from either using Keltron radios or AES radios, or depending on your marketplace, there are still, plain old telephone lines. So we have every way of doing that. And then not only that, but using some sort of IP or dual path communicator to see what's going on with this system remotely via remote diagnostics. And we'll kind of get into that here next. So if we look at the front end of a Kidde FX64 or FX1000, we have a very simple setup, okay? We have 2 programmable switches, all right? And it's just more so than doing walk tests and taking AVs in and out of signal. Basically, what we're capable of doing is programming door holders, water flows, elevator recall, fan shutdown, just from these buttons. So from a scalability standpoint, and then not only that, from a service standpoint, this makes your cost of ownership far less, okay? And then now to lean into that, if we're talking cost of total ownership from a service standpoint, what remote diagnostics gives you is the ability to kind of know before you go, right? So we can pull more so than just our panel status. We can see what's truly reporting back to our main fire alarm control panel or head end. And to give that some visualization, we can tie in and log in remotely, as stated earlier, with that IP address and see what devices are reporting, okay? Do we have any device faults over the history of this panel over the past 24 hours? Okay, what are our battery voltages? So if we're getting customers calling with separate issues that their panel is going in and out of trouble or alarm, these are tools that you can use now and potentially even charge from a customer standpoint or a service standpoint to see exactly what's going on before you ever send a truck. Okay, we can pull dirty analysis from our detectors, our true device histories. It'll give you all your inputs and a tool that you can use to remotely monitor your panel. Okay, now here's another wonderful tool we could use in the market, especially for my electricals out there who are wiring up different types of systems all the time, want to be sure that when your parts and smarts contractor you might be working with has everything good to go before they even arrive. This is the Ki Hdt Tool, okay? So this is something that we can tie in our data loops or SLC loops into to see what devices are reporting in our system, okay? So maybe we wired something up and we want to see exactly if it's reporting. Look at this as a panel in your hands. So for the cost of ownership, this makes life so much easier. We'll tell you your ground faults per our input devices and what is truly reporting in this system. Once again, another great tool that can be purchased on an over-the-counter platform. Now, if we also want to see where we've gone in the marketplace, now we have a truly UL-compatible and listed USB programming tool, or if we want to pull reports, we can use Type B USB to pull printer reports as well, tie into any printer, okay? So another great option this gives you is to tie into a third-party building management system. All right, so with the SA-FSB module or Field Server Bridge module, this gives us the capability to give our end user the ability to look at their system from a true graphical interface. So most building automation systems, especially in some larger properties or even hotels, will have a building automation system where they can see what's going on from a graphical standpoint of their building. So for your facilities managers, this is huge, okay? This gives us a true graphical interface of our fire alarm system on our building management software. And this is also another product that's available over the counter.
So just to kind of drive a little further here on what Mike's talking about. So with our what we call a field server bridge, and it's a bridging unit that we take the information digitally and push it out through this field server unit. And it's one option is BACnet. There's Modbus and TCP/IP that communicate. So it doesn't have to just go to building automation system. It possibly can even go into, say, if you had a security access control system that had graphics at the property. So it's just being able to give that digital connection to another solution that you may have at your property, so that when it comes in to those other platforms, those other platforms may also have emailing functions that you can utilize. And there are tools that are actually possibly being used much more often throughout the day, throughout the week, because as we all know, the fire alarm system is a dormant product. 99% of the time, it's sitting there and simply just operating. However, you have other systems within your building, like a building automation system or, a video system for security that people are interacting with daily. And it would help them to see that information on a common platform that they're touching and feeling each and every day. So let's move out of the conversation around panels, and we'll move into the device areas, the inputs. And as we move in, we want to share with you a recent video that we actually have put out into the market because of a new product, which is our Optica series detector that is available through the over-the-counter product with our FX series. So for just a few moments here, for about a minute or so, we're going to let you listen to a really good video. So I hope all of you enjoyed that. And we're going to expand on something that you saw there in the video, which is the UL 7th edition Compliancy of the Optica series detector that's now available within our Kidde FX product line. And as you see here on the screen, this is actually a UL standard that goes into effect in June of 2024. It actually is a standard requirement from UL. What it is UL is the independent testing laboratory for a lot of fire and life safety products, along with other products around different industries. And they changed their testing requirement back in 2015 and started requiring manufacturers of system smoke detectors, as well as smoke alarms like you have in your single family homes, your 120 volt AC powered battery backup smoke alarms, that these detectors now have to be resistant to cooking. So smoke or steam that is generated from cooking, that the detectors are supposed to actually have the level of intelligence to actually stop and think and look and see within the particle size within a chamber to understand what's happening. So UL actually has been pushing this standard requirement out for manufacturers. So it's actually now June 2024. But here at Kidde, as well as our Edwards business and carrier, we've been having an Optica series solution available in the market for several years now. So also, this code, there is a code requirement around nuisance sources. So it's not just a UL requirement, but the NFPA 72, which happens to be the primary code standard that actually fire alarm systems follow, 2013, 16, 19, as well as the new one that's coming out now, 2022, all have requirements around this nuisance requirement. And the biggest thing from a purchasing standpoint around this is to understand that the manufacturers that are out there that have met this requirement today is understanding how are they backwards compatible, one. And then two, are they actually installing systems that actually meet this requirement now? Even though the requirement doesn't go into effect until June of 2024, solutions are available on the market today. So you, as an installer, purchaser, supplier, you have this actually brand new technology from us today in the market. And kind of to expand on that tech, go ahead, Mike.
No, Tim, just wanted to kind of expound on this a little bit more with you. I mean, do you believe that in the marketplace for our end users, this would be something that would help cut down on cost of ownership also with cutting down on the potential amount of false alarms in the properties that they would install this type of equipment in.
Oh, yeah, most definitely, Mike. Thank you for that question, because actually we've actually done white papers where we've had college dormitories as well as hotels that have experienced issues with steam from showers or cooking, that actually the device performed exactly the way it's engineered and designed, and that the non-condensing steam was actually picked up by the smoke chamber and prevented actually a false alarm. And truly that's, significant from a life cycle cost savings, and it's not as much with the life cycle cost savings on the product, but as in the cost savings for a hotel, right? So displacing hotel guests in the middle of the evening can be significant issues for the hospitality space, as well as you think about senior living. You think about condominiums, multifamily, dormitories. It can be a significant issue when you have a false alarm due to a cooking source or due to steam or any other type of item out there. But thanks, Mike. So just to kind of expand just a tad bit more on the technology. So the device you see over on the right is obviously a device with the hood taken off. You'll see the item up there in the upper right corner. It says photo receiver. That's the traditional way that the detector actually is a photoelectric principle of detection, meaning particles come into the smoke chamber. They break up the LED, transmitting and receiving LEDs, and it activates. The additional piece that has happened inside the engineering of our product, we've actually added additional LEDs. One is an infrared forwards LED, the other one's an infrared backwards scattering LED. And then we also have a blue forward LED. And what's happening with those three different LEDs, it's actually looking at the smoke particles, determining size, shape, density, running the information through an algorithm. And this is all happening in split seconds of time, and determining actually if the particles within the chamber are truly particles that are warrant an alarm, a smoke detection action to take place. So that's actually what's happening inside the head. So there is truly cost savings with this device. And just to kind of move on, we've actually made it to where it is backwards compatible, even to our legacy FX Kidde products that are out there today. Now we have, depending on the addition of the detectors that may be connected to the Kidde FX panel that's out there, it could either be simply as much as replacing the detector and installing it into an existing base, or it could require actually changing out the base. But the big piece takeaway here is it's a much higher level of technology and can be installed and put into a system today, and they can mix and match on the same circuit. So you don't have to replace all of the detectors on that circuit. So if you had our 6th generation KIR detector out there, you could simply replace it with the 7th edition KIR detector, and you only have to replace one for one. It doesn't require replacing all of them. So again, technology, backwards compatibility, and it's all built into the product to support that. And to speak a little bit further about what the offerings are from the detectors themselves. So there's a plethora of devices, right? We obviously have smoke detection only. There's smoke as well as heat, and carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is a huge item that is, specifically in the multifamily, hospitality, senior living, where we have all kinds of different gas appliances, pool heaters, and things of that nature. So we also have the combination of a smoke and CO. We even pull that CO into heat, and we do the triple threat, right? We've got a smoke, a heat, and CO as well. And then we also have a deduct detector devices. So you can see that we do in our Kidde FX line, we actually provide a complete product line from the detection piece. And then they're easily identifiable. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was also going to hit on the easy identifiable. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as you can see it, if you can see it on your screen, there's 2 little red circles over there under the image of the smoke detector that's there. And the 2 circles are indicating, one is over top of an O because that indicates Optica for the Optica technology in that image. And then the other one is circling an H for heat. So a person could actually view it from the standing on the floor and understand that, oh, that's a combination unit that's actually doing smoke and heat on that. And like all of our Kidde field devices, these are rotary dial. So addressing the devices in the field is very simple, very easy. It's nothing more than taking a screwdriver and actually turning the two different dials to the positions that you need for actually field addressing the devices. And then to move on there, we also offer a plethora of bases. We have sounder bases, which are very unique and important to the multifamily space, but also we have isolator bases, bases that have relays on them, so you can actually control something like a smoke damper from a detector. Standard bases, and they can come with skirts, or you can also add the trim skirt to them. The 500 and go ahead. Yeah, Mike.
No, the thing to keep in mind with the KISB4 detector bases is that it's the same cost as the KISB, and the 4 would get you the trim plate. So for the cost of doing business, it's something that we try and provide to our end users, something that looks a little bit cleaner, as opposed to having to buy those trim rings separately. Just wanted to keep that into mind.
Yeah, so you can actually have your choice and pay the same price is what you're telling us.
Exactly.
Right. So you can get it with the trim plate, or if you don't feel like the trim plate's needed, and you're surface mounting it, you could actually just use it without the trim plate. Very good. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Tim.
To kind of expand on something there regarding the 520 hertz low frequency device or base. So if you didn't know, so recently here, the 2021 International Building and International Fire Code, which were released basically last year, they actually have now changed some code sections in there for the group R1 and R2, which are your sleeping occupancies for hotels, dormitories, and as such. The requirement that is changed is what they classify is in the smoke alarm section. So smoke alarm in our world of the fire and life safety industry, smoke alarm is representing your 120 volt AC powered device with a battery. And in those code sections, they've actually stated that we need to actually have what's called a 520 hertz signal produced from the detector when it activates. The unfortunate part today is that there isn't a manufacturer that's providing the smoke alarm, that 120 volt AC with battery, that it's available on the market to produce that 520 hertz signal. Now, this is not a retroactive code, and this code will only be enforced where the local JHJs are all of a sudden past the code and available for them to enforce it. So typically that would probably be looking about 2 to 3 years down the road, but there could be certain jurisdictions that enforce it today. So to meet the code requirement today, then you would actually have to install a fire alarm system smoke detector in the commercial sleeping occupancy type application. So that would have to be that 520 hertz low frequency base that we just previously touched on in the previous slide. And you would have to have that system smoke detector installed into the base. And now with the programming sequence that you can do with a Kidde FX panel, you can make that detector operate both for what we would classify as a standalone smoke alarm in-room operation. So when the detector goes off, it only activates that sounder base. But you can also program the system to where it can operate as a general alarm notification horn, so that if someone pulled a pull station, that same sounder base can be utilized and used a notification within the actual space itself. So you're actually getting, again, kind of like what Mike was talking about with the pricing on the bases, right? You're getting, more bang for your buck if you actually put in a system detector with the low frequency sounder base, because it's a horn. You don't have to worry about installing the horn. And then you also are meeting this new code requirement of having to have a detector for when the detector goes off in the space to activate. You're also meeting that requirement. So turn it back over to you, Mike, and take us through the pull stations and modules here before we get into notification.
Thank you, Tim. Very well said. So as we look into our options that we have on the marketplace in regards to our single and dual action pull stations, our biggest claim to fame from, end quote, Edwards Kidde would be these FX270 devices here. They're basically indestructible. They've been on the market forever, and some would call them the antiques of the industry, but they are reliable and more so our claim to fame. You'll also find the FX278s, okay? And then our conventional line of products and the explosion-proof line of products, which would be the 276s and the KI M series products, okay? And then now if we look back into the addressable side, all right, with our module types, of course, single input, dual input, all right, our output modules that will supervise and make sure we sync our output circuits, okay, for our BPSs or booster power supplies, your run-of-the-mill relays, isolator modules, okay, and then not only that, a 2-wire conventional interface module that can hold up to 18 module addresses on the panel and tie in 16 conventional inputs. Okay, so this is great. I look at for either a large riser room, okay, let's say in a large application where we have a large sprinkler system. This would be a great way of monitoring all of those points into one little head end. Or let's say we have a conventional system that we want to take addressable. We can tie in this RZI 16-2RS to, in fact, make those conventional inputs now addressable. Another thing to keep in mind with the RZI 16-2RS is that it will support system sensor detection. So it's not just necessarily our product that it'll work with, but older conventional devices from other competitive manufacturers, it will, in fact, represent. Once again, all rotary dial addressing and things that can definitely help save costs on the overall cost of a project, okay? Now we're going to move into our line of notification appliances that I have alluded to earlier will help cost savings greatly. Okay, so if we look at our new line of Genesis LED product, we have a nice system and scalability that, if needed, you have weatherproof devices, you have explosion-proof devices with our AV products as well available to you through distribution. You also have ceiling and wall-mounted devices, okay? We're going to kind of get into those here. The thing to take away with Genesis LED is that the current draws do not change per the Candela rating rated on the device. So as far as your battery calcs goes, easy as can be, all right? As far as our coverage goes, we have a 115 ceiling mounted device and a 110 wall mounted device, okay? Now, if we look at this, this is something now from a standpoint of scaling our system, okay, we can fit up to about 40 to 30 devices depending on our wire type per our wire runs. In the past, the max probably you were capable of receiving in one output circuit would be maybe 9 to 12 if you're lucky, depending on what those devices were rated at. So now your cost of ownership with Genesis LED and your cost of projects is going to greatly reduce just due to the fact that you're using less wire, less labor, and less booster power supplies. Let's say we have a large warehouse and we have multiple runs cascading. Well, this is something from a visual coverage standpoint with our 115 devices. Let's say you're using, 16 or 14 gauge FPL. This is something now that we can fit up to 25 devices in a circuit with our highest current draw device, which is 60 milliamps of our EGC AVRF device. So once again, looking at this, to set it and forget it, over a 90% reduction in current draw across the board. And the thing to keep in mind is that we can use this product with anybody else, all right? And we can tie into that in the future. Just reach out.
Mike, yeah. Just a second to go back here. So we did have a question just a little bit ago about, if we offered an addressable notification devices. And I responded to the answer, obviously advising that we don't today. But this here is actually, what I was talking about. You can see that there is a huge amount of opportunity to where you can expand notification devices onto our notification circuits off our panels, as well as our booster panels, which Mike is getting ready to go over. Putting 51 notification devices on a 12 gauge pair of wires is extremely a large amount of notification devices in doing that. And also, taking advantage of not having to worry about changing that Candela setting. So if you had a fire inspector that showed up to your property to do the inspection, and they realize that you installed, a 15 candela device or set it at 15 candela and it needs to be a 75 or 110, all you have to do is change the switch. You don't have to worry about going back and redoing battery calculations and voltage drops and providing the other national paperwork to make sure that everything has been installed and engineered properly. You get that opportunity right here with us, to just simply change a switch. That's all you have to do. It's an absolutely amazing thing our engineering people have been able to generate. So I'll let you take it from here, Mike.
Well, Tim, to add to that point, if we truly wanted to make a notification circuit addressable, what we could do is use an FX NAC module per circuit. That would give you the same supervision as to make that NAC addressable. So if you really wanted to do that, you could with using an FX NAC module that could also trip a booster, but we could use that per circuit and get the same function. So great question. So as we kind of look into our devices themselves and the options we have in wiring them, with our G4 and GC devices, or ceiling mount option or 4-inch backplate option, we have a wiring plate. So for our electrical contractors in the crowd, if we are installing systems pre-construction or as walls are coming up, we can go in and get our wiring plates hung before we hang our devices. From a standpoint of devices getting damaged, I believe we've all been in standpoints where install starts, device gets knocked off the wall and destroyed. Now you got to go replace it. This can also help that cost of ownership standpoint. And then to look at our compact wall devices, our G1s, you have a voltage test port on the device itself. So now, as opposed to going to the end of the line to figure out where our trouble child is, now we can go directly to the device to figure out where our voltage issue might be coming from. So to look at our BPS models or our booster power supply models, okay, the eBPS 6A and 10A, basically what that is representing is our amperage. So a 6 amp model and a 10 amp model, all right, all capable of being purchased over the counter, need a FX NAC to support this and to sync our BPS with our head end. To also look at different options that we may have, let's say for voice applications. This would be the audio notification system, or ANS system. Okay, this is a 25, 50, and 100 watt models. Okay, the 25 and the 100 watt models are rated to do low frequency tones. Okay, so these are things to keep into mind as we're working with different applications that may require those low frequency tones. And we're getting above, I'd say, 100 sleeping rooms, and we don't need that smoke seal combo. Now, this could provide that for you, cut down on the amount of circuits you're using with our speaker devices that are also rated for that. And then not only that, let's say we have maybe a school that would require those voice evac type applications. This can support a single channel of voice evac, and it all coming off of a dedicated NAC. All right.
And I believe that answers. We did have a question in the Q&A, Mike, that actually asked about voice. So this is the solution for our FX series in supporting voice communication requirements out there. So from here, let's kind of we're wrapped up here, and I see that we're 47 minutes after the hour. So just to kind of finish up with a few things from target projects, how to buy the products, support tools, and things of that nature, and then we'll go into some Q&A. So first of all, so target projects. So some of the sweet spots of the product fits today. It's senior living, retail, education, as you can see on the slide here. But specifically for me as a strategic accounts director, hospitality is a huge space for us that we do very well with this product because of the low frequency tone on the sounder bases, because of that flexibility of the programming and those types of things. It really is a sweet spot for the economy, mid-scale, up to an upper scale type hospitality application. And I think, Mike, you wanted to mention something about the education market in regards to the FX.
Well, absolutely, Tim. Thank you. Yeah, education is a big spot, especially in regards to service and different accounts that would require parts and smarts. And I believe with the ANS that we just reviewed, the audio notification system for some of these smaller schools that are now requiring voice, this is something that would make your life far easier. And not only that, but incorporating applications that are meeting code. And then another thing I would say where we fit in another great marketplace would be commercial. So as stated earlier, let's say it's a large warehouse, for example, our LED notification will help your wire runs greatly and help you reduce costs of your total projects as you look at them. So definitely different sweet spots to pay attention to.
Most definitely. And with the flexibility of the product in between hitting the commercial space to the multifamily, apartment space, there's a lot of options that the product can actually support in the target space. So from there, let's kind of touch on, so if you go to the kiddefx.kidde.com website, again, that's kiddefx.kidde.com website, you'll actually see pop-down menus for different options and things of that nature. But one thing that can be offered there is a complete catalog of all of our data sheets. There are download availabilities from product tools where it can help you put together estimations around the material that's needed, as well as battery calculations and voltage drops. We have those training videos that Mike actually talked about well in the beginning of the session here, and one of the agenda items around what an electrical contractor would need. Software is available, so the computer laptop interface software is available at the kiddefx.kidde.com website. Product announcements, we actually offer CAD drawings. So if you're someone that has a jurisdictions that requires CAD drawings showing the actual panel, showing the connection to the panel itself or the field devices, showing those common connections, we offer those CAD files there along with bulletins. So there's a plethora of information there, as well as the next slide here is how you can actually purchase the KiddeFX product, which, I think we both clicked at the same time. So through our security distribution partners that you see here on the screen, the KiddeFX product is completely offered through them. It is offered also through electrical distribution suppliers like Graybar, Rexel, and those types of spaces. But ADI, Annixter, the companies you see here on the screen are all places where you can actually obtain the product, as well as we do some of the training, I believe, right, Mike? Don't we do some of our training in partnership with our distribution suppliers?
Absolutely, Tim. Great question. So these are things that now that, we're starting to get back to, normal life and getting back in person with all of you, this is something that we'll try and push our trainings through different channels of distribution. If it be on a local or Midwest market, ADI, Annixter, SES are the big players. If we're going more south, Alarmax, for East Side, Brooklyn Low Voltage Supply, Systems Depot, things of that nature are all things as Kidde district managers that we try and provide end users in the market to get this type of free training and learn new product at no cost to them and understand the value of it.
Great. I think we've come to the point for Q&A, and I'm not sure if Colleen wants to come back on and help us with that. I mean, I've got some questions here in the chat as well.
Sure, I can feed you some questions.
Sure.
And it looks like you guys answered a few questions privately, but I want to give everyone else the benefit of hearing the answers. So I may ask some questions that you've already talked to some people about.
Sure.
So the first question was, I don't know what they mean, but does this system offer ground fault troubleshooting or diagnostics? So maybe you would want to talk generally about the Kidde systems if they offer ground fault troubleshooting.
So great question. So ground fault ID by input device is a big thing that we carry here in the KiddeFX channel. Okay. So as far as ground fault ID, that would be per your input devices. So your single dual input modules, your FX and ACK modules, your relays, things that are taking in an input would be capable of providing that ground fault ID detection. Okay. Another things as far as remote diagnostics, as we just kind of alluded to, having a Bosch dual path communicator or something in regards to providing a IP address to this panel would give you those remote diagnostics where you could log in remotely to see the status of this system and see what's going on, and that whole premise that we touched on of know before you go.
Okay. And here's a question I think, Tim, you mentioned, but we didn't actually ask it. What about communicating through a voice over IP trunk circuit instead of a pot styler?
Yeah, so the panel has the capability of communicating via Ethernet out to a company that actually provides IP monitoring. So we can do that. But the other option for that is also, because sometimes you have to have depending on the jurisdiction, they may want a secondary path of communication, which could be cellular. So you could actually also connect to, a Bosch dual path communicator from the actual dialer that's on board and have that communication path to an IP receiver and or through a cellular communication to a cellular communication back into a central station. So there are a couple different options there. So the answer to the question is yes.
Okay. Here's a question about warranty. How many years does Kidde offer for its warranty?
3 years out of the box. So
Okay.
our equipment will have a 3-year warranty out of the box, and that's directly through the manufacturer. Now, that would only be supported, keep in mind, if we are buying it through licensed distribution partners. Okay, you buy it off of some other alternative source, not to be named, that warranty could be in jeopardy. Just things to keep into mind as we're looking at this product through distribution channels.
That's definitely important.
Yes.
What is the voltage tap for the Kidde speakers?
Great question. So if we look at our speaker devices as compared to some you have to either buy a 25-volt model or a 70-volt model. On our speaker visual devices, okay, which do utilize LED technology, it is tappable on the device itself. So you can switch between 25 and 75 volts with a switch.
Okay. Is the audio notification panel listed to support a 520 hertz low frequency tone, which is required for sleeping occupancies?
Yes, it is. Another great question. I kind of got into that with that slide itself. Definitely a great piece of information to take home. So still great questions and still things to keep in mind as you are looking at larger scale occupancies that maybe are above that 75 or 100 unit point. That's where I really feel that that's useful. And if people on the call would have any sort of need to look at applications like that, feel free to reach out to me directly.
Okay. And just to remind everyone, if you want to ask a question, just pop it in the Q&A box and we'll try and get to it. Here's a question about the FX panels. Are they listed for smoke control?
I'll take that one there. So unfortunately, no, they are not. So they are not what's called UUKL listed. That actually is a much more dynamic programming feature that requires a lot of other things to happen. So the Kidde FX product is not, supporting the UUKL listing for smoke control. But we do have other solutions within our carrier fire alarm and life safety product family that does have that, carry that listing.
Okay. I have another question about the FX. Does the FX 64/1000 have mapping capabilities, and how does it help the fire alarm tech?
So go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say the answer is yes, but no, is what it is. So someone obviously understands the mapping capability is actually a feature that came to market with our Edwards EST product line back in the 90s. That feature is on board within the Kidde FX solution. However, it's not a feature that is actually being utilized as far as being able to utilize the actual map itself. Mapping is done as a digital component. However, all the mapping engines and all the other, troubleshooting tools like what Mike went over with the HDT tool and everything else, all that technology is there. It's just a feature due to the complexity of what mapping is a feature that we don't utilize or offer within the FX 64 and 1000 just because it is, an open market product. It does take a little bit more training and more technical experience to understand what that feature is. So we don't make that available in the FX product line.
Yeah, and to kind of allude to Tim in that point, all of the FX devices have a rotary switch where we're putting that device as a specific number. So if it's an input device, that device will have a specific number dedicated to it that you set on the device itself. Where mapping, as Tim was going into, is that we're polling that loop for each device, and it's talking back to the head end for each device would have a separate address on it itself. So that would just kind of be a simple plain Jane answer as to how that works.
Okay. I have what looks like a clarifying question about smoke control. So is it correct that the Kidde VS series qualifies for smoke control?
Actually, it would be the Kidde VM panel that has that listing to do smoke control. Okay, so that's a proprietary line within the Kidde channel. That would be a distributor partner market. Okay, so the Kidde VM panel, if we're talking larger scale solutions, would be capable of handling that listing.
Okay. Here's another question about the FX system. Does it support duct detectors?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So the FX PED, which soon will have Optica technology as we start to release new products into the marketplace. Yes, we do. Duct detector with the relays built on it. So that is a nice function if we're talking from an application standpoint. The relays are built on our duct detectors.
Okay. Do you guys offer in-person training on how to program these various systems?
Great question. Yes, we do. So these are things, as we discussed, kind of via our distribution partners, what we try and do locally with them, if the space is available, to do Kidde FX and panel programming training and general training on the product line. Another thing we'll choose to do, for example, if it was in April, our wonderful trainer from corporate, Mr. Steve Dunham, came out to Maryville, Indiana, and we had a large class of Kidde FX panel programming that, once again, is free to end users. So that's definitely something to try and take advantage of as an end user in the market of these free tools that we provide for people.
Okay. And on the topic of support, is your tech support US based? And where can you find the contact number to get a hold of tech support?
So yes, so our customer service, and then not only that, but our tech support are all US based. Tech support's based out of Bradenton, Florida, our main headquarters. Okay, and that number can be found on the Kidde FX website or Kidde Engineered Systems website.
Yeah, so that's kiddefx.kidde.com is the website look under the contact pop down or the contact link, and it'll take you and scroll down. You'll have the tech support numbers along with sales and other pieces of the company. Customer service can also be contacted there.
Okay, well, that looks like to be all of the questions that we've gotten today.
I think there was one. I think there was one more, Colleen. I think we ran over by the other ones.
Oh.
And I think Mike knows the answer to this one here. And it was, does the BPS booster power supply carry the sync pulse for Cooper Wheelock devices?
So we would need a sync module on this, okay? So in theory, we could use an FX NAC, but the safest bet is to use the Cooper Wheelock sync module. And yes, that will provide the sync pulse for their equipment on our NAC circuit. So that's something that, of course, right now, as we all know, we could be in a pinch for certain products. That is something that we could use with that module, and we could also refer to their technical documents on Wheelock to see how we would be capable of doing so.
Okay. Looks like we got another question while we were chatting. Is the Kidde FX a networkable panel? Can it be interconnected with other Kidde panels to offer like a campus-style solution?
So nothing over the counter would be capable of being, quote, networkable. All right. So most of networkable systems you will see in partner channeled product. So Kidde does have a networkable panel, okay, that would be in the partner portal. And if people would have more questions of that, I have no problem answering them. If they'd like to reach out to me directly, that's something that would take away from the focus of Kidde FX. So we do have the capability, just not in the Kidde FX product line.
Okay. I believe that is all of the questions. So thank you everyone for attending. This was a fantastic panel. Thank you, Mike and Tim, for a great presentation. I think everybody learned a lot today. I want to thank our sponsor, Kidde, for helping us out with this webinar. So please, everyone, when the webinar ends, please don't forget to fill out the survey that's going to pop up. It'll just take you a minute or two. It's just a few quick questions. And please be on the lookout in your email for the link to the recording of this webinar. I know a few of you were saying that you had some audio issues, so hopefully you'll be able to go back and watch what you missed. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you at a future webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen, for your support.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day.